The knock on my door at 7 in the morning told me everything I needed to know about how my Tuesday was going to go. And I was right to be worried, because standing on my porch was Linda Carmichael, the HOA president of Meadowbrook Estates in Henderson, Nevada, holding her ever-present clipboard like it was some kind of holy scripture. I opened the door with my coffee still in hand, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Morning, Linda. Stephen Kellerman, I need to speak with you about your backyard storage situation." She didn't even bother with pleasantries, which was typical Linda. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tight I wondered if it gave her headaches, and her polo shirt had the HOA logo embroidered on it like she was some kind of official authority figure. "My storage shed?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I put up a small storage unit 3 weeks ago, right by my back fence. Nothing fancy, just a standard 8 by 10-foot metal shed from Home Depot to store my tools and lawn equipment." "That monstrosity is against HOA regulations," Linda said, flipping through pages on her clipboard. Section 12, Paragraph 4 clearly states that any outdoor structure requires pre-approval from the Architectural Review Committee. I took a sip of my coffee, buying myself a moment. "Linda, that shed is completely within code. I checked the city regulations before I bought it. It's under the height limit, it's the right distance from the property line, and it matches my house color." "I don't care about city regulations," she snapped. "HOA rules supersede municipal codes in matters of aesthetics and community standards." That wasn't true, and we both knew it, but Linda had a habit of making up rules as she went along. I'd lived in this neighborhood for 5 years, and in that time, Linda had been HOA president for 4 of them. She'd turned what should have been a simple community organization into her personal fiefdom. "I'll look into it," I said, starting to close the door. "You have 72 hours to remove it or face daily fines of $100, Linda said sharply. "I'm also calling code enforcement to document this violation." I stopped. "You're calling code enforcement? For what?" "To verify that your structure is indeed in violation of county building codes," she said with a satisfied smile. "I'm sure they'll find something wrong with it." After she left, I stood in my doorway finishing my coffee and contemplating whether it was too early to start drinking something stronger. My neighbor, Marcus Webb, was getting his newspaper and gave me a sympathetic wave. "Linda, strike again," he called over. "She's threatening to call code enforcement on my storage shed," I said, walking over to the property line between our yards. Marcus shook his head. "That woman has too much time on her hands. Your shed looks fine to me. Better than that monstrosity the Hendersons put up last year." "The Hendersons are on the Architectural Review Committee," I pointed out. "Exactly," Marcus said. "Look, I've got the number of a good lawyer if you need one. Linda tried to fine me last year for having my trash cans visible from the street on a non-collection day. Turned out she was misreading the regulations. The lawyer sent one letter and she backed off. I thanked him and headed back inside. My girlfriend Nicole Edwards was coming down the stairs, already dressed for work in her nursing scrubs. "Was that Linda I heard?" "Yeah, she's on a rampage about the storage shed." Nicole rolled her eyes. "That woman needs a hobby." "What did she say?" I explained the situation while Nicole poured herself coffee. She'd moved in with me 6 months ago, and Linda had immediately tried to claim that violated some occupancy rule that didn't actually exist. Nicole had handled it by showing up to an HOA meeting with a copy of Nevada housing law and reading it aloud until Linda gave up. "She's calling code enforcement?" Nicole asked. "That seems extreme even for her. She thinks they'll find something wrong with it and back up her position. But you checked everything before you installed it, right?" "Twice," I confirmed. "It's totally legal." 10 feet from the property line, under 12 feet in height, and it's not visible from the street. I followed every county regulation to the letter. Nicole kissed me on the cheek. Then let her call. She's just going to embarrass herself. Again. After Nicole left for her shift at Henderson Hospital, I got ready for work myself. I was a software engineer for a gaming company in Las Vegas, which meant I could work from home most days, but Tuesday was one of my required in-office days. The whole drive to work, I kept thinking about Linda and her threats. The storage shed had cost me $800, and I'd spent a full weekend assembling it. I wasn't taking it down because Linda Carmichael had a power trip. The day at work dragged on. My mind kept wandering back to the HOA situation. During lunch, I pulled up the Henderson Municipal Code on my phone and went through the storage structure regulations again. My shed was compliant with every single requirement. It was properly anchored, the right size, the right setback distance, and constructed of approved materials. I also looked up Nevada HOA law, which I'd had to do several times since Linda took over as president. Nevada revised statutes had some pretty clear language about HOA authority. While HOAs could set aesthetic standards, they couldn't require homeowners to violate their property rights or supersede municipal code in areas of safety and basic property use. When I got home that evening, there was a notice stuck to my front door. Code enforcement had scheduled an inspection for Thursday at 10 in the morning. That was faster than I'd expected. Linda must have really pushed them to come out quickly. Nicole got home around 7, exhausted from a double shift. I showed her the notice while she kicked off her shoes. Thursday. That's tomorrow, she said, looking at the paper. Day after tomorrow, I corrected. Today's Tuesday. Right, sorry, long day. She collapsed on the couch. Well, at least you'll get it resolved quickly. The inspector will see it's fine and Linda will have to back off. Unless she knows someone at code enforcement who will do her a favor, I said. That would be fraud, Nicole pointed out. Even Linda isn't that stupid. I wanted to believe that, but Linda had proven herself capable of some pretty questionable behavior over the years. There was the time she tried to fine the Martinez family for having too many cars in their driveway during their daughter's graduation party. Or when she'd attempted to ban political signs during election season, claiming they were against HOA rules, until someone pointed out that was literally illegal under Nevada law. Wednesday passed uneventfully. I worked from home, getting through a series of code reviews and meetings. Every time I looked out the back window, I could see my storage shed sitting there innocently, painted to match my house's tan color scheme, completely unremarkable. The fact that Linda had fixated on it seemed almost personal. Actually, now that I thought about it, it probably was personal. 2 months ago, I'd voted against her proposal to increase HOA dues by 30%. The money was supposedly for neighborhood improvements, but Linda had been frustratingly vague about what those improvements would be. When I'd pressed her for specifics at the meeting, she'd gotten defensive and snapped at me in front of everyone. The measure had failed to pass, and Linda had been cold to me ever since. Thursday morning arrived with typical Nevada sunshine and heat. By 9:30, it was already pushing 85 degrees. I'd taken the day off work, wanting to be present for the inspection. Nicole had already left for an early shift, but she'd sent me a text saying, "Good luck with the inspection. Linda is going to be so mad when she's wrong." At 9:50, Linda appeared in my driveway, clipboard in hand as always. She was wearing another HOA polo shirt and khaki shorts, looking like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "I'm here to observe the code enforcement inspection," she announced when I opened the door. "You don't live here, Linda." As HOA president, I have a vested interest in ensuring all properties are in compliance with county regulations," she said in that officious tone she used when she wanted to sound important. I didn't have the energy to argue. "Fine. Wait out here. The inspector isn't here yet anyway." "I'll wait right here where I can see everything," she said, planting herself at the edge of my driveway. Marcus came out of his house across the street, ostensibly to water his plants, but really to watch the show. A few other neighbors started appearing too. News traveled fast in Meadowbrook Estates, and everyone knew about Linda's vendetta against my storage shed. At 10 on the dot, a white pickup truck with Henderson Code Enforcement on the side pulled up. A man in his late 40s got out, wearing a tan uniform and carrying a tablet and measuring tape. He had graying hair and looked like he'd done this inspection routine about 10,000 times before. "Stephen Kellerman," he asked, walking up. "That's me. Thanks for coming out." "I'm Officer Brad Morrison with Code Enforcement. I understand there's a concern about a storage structure." He glanced at Linda, who had immediately perked up at his arrival. "Yes," Linda interjected before I could speak. "That shed in the backyard is clearly in violation of multiple codes. The size, the placement, the construction quality." Officer Morrison looked at her. "And you are Linda Carmichael, president of the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. I filed the complaint." "I see." His tone was neutral, but I caught something in his expression. He turned back to me. "Mind if I take a look?" "Not at all. Come on back." I led him through the side gate to my backyard. Linda tried to follow, but Officer Morrison held up a hand. "Madam, I need to conduct this inspection with the property owner. You can wait out front." "But I'm the one who filed the complaint," Linda protested. "I understand that, but this is private property, and I need to maintain objectivity in my inspection. If the homeowner wants you present, that's his choice, but it's not required." I definitely didn't want Linda hovering over us, so I said nothing. She looked furious but retreated to the front yard. Officer Morrison and I walked to the backyard in silence. When we reached the shed, he stopped and looked at it for a long moment. Then he pulled out his measuring tape. For the next 15 minutes, he measured every aspect of the shed. Distance from the property line, distance from my house, height at the peak, width and depth. He checked that it was properly anchored to a concrete pad. He examined the construction quality, the materials, even the paint color. Finally, he pulled up something on his tablet, scrolling through what I assumed were the county codes. He compared measurements, checked some boxes, and took several photos. "Mr. Kellerman," he said finally, "can you tell me when this structure was installed?" 3 weeks ago. "I bought it from Home Depot and assembled it myself following the manufacturer's instructions." "Did you pull a permit?" My stomach dropped. I checked the county website. It said structures under 120 square feet didn't require a permit as long as they met the setback requirements. "That's correct." He showed me his tablet. "Your shed is 80 square feet. It's 12 feet from your property line, which exceeds the required 10-foot setback, and it's 9 feet tall, which is well under the 12-foot maximum height restriction. Everything here is completely code compliant." Relief washed over me. So there's no violation, none whatsoever. This is a textbook example of a properly installed residential storage structure. He made some notes on his tablet. "I'm going to document this as a non-violation and close the complaint. Thank you, Officer Morrison. I appreciate you coming out. It's my job." He paused, looking at me. "Can I ask you something? What's your relationship with Mrs. Carmichael like?" "Complicated," I said carefully. "She's the HOA president and has very strong opinions about how the neighborhood should look." "Has she filed other complaints against you?" "Not with the county, but she's threatened HOA fines several times for various things. Most of them turned out to be based on rules that didn't actually exist or that she was misinterpreting. Officer Morrison nodded slowly. How many other homeowners has she done this to? Several. My neighbor Marcus had issues with her last year, the Martinez family a few months before that. There's been others. I see. He made some more notes. Let's go back out front. I need to speak with Mrs. Carmichael. When we returned to the front yard, Linda was standing exactly where we'd left her, her arms crossed and her expression smug. She clearly expected vindication. Well, she demanded as we approached. How many violations did you find? Officer Morrison pulled up his tablet. Mrs. Carmichael, I've completed my inspection of the storage structure. It is in complete compliance with Henderson County building codes. There are no violations. Linda's expression changed from smug to shocked to angry in about 3 seconds. That's impossible. The shed is obviously too close to the property line. It's 12 feet from the property line. The requirement is 10 feet. Then it's too tall, 9 feet. The maximum is 12. The materials must not be approved. Standard galvanized steel construction with manufacturer's certification. Completely approved materials. Linda was sputtering now. But it's an eyesore. It ruins the aesthetic of the neighborhood. That's not a code enforcement issue, madam. That would be an HOA matter, and I can't speak to your association's architectural guidelines. But from a county standpoint, this structure is completely legal. This is ridiculous, Linda snapped. I want a second opinion. I want another inspector out here. Officer Morrison's expression hardened slightly. Mrs. Carmichael, I'm a certified code enforcement officer with 15 years of experience. My inspection is thorough and accurate. If you want to appeal my findings, you can file a formal appeal with the county, but I can tell you right now it will be denied because Mr. Kellerman's shed meets all applicable codes. I will be filing a complaint about your incompetence, Linda said. That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Officer Morrison's jaw tightened. Madam, I'm going to ask you some questions and I need you to answer them honestly. How many code enforcement complaints have you filed in the past year? I don't see how that's relevant. How many? He repeated. Linda hesitated. I don't keep count. It's my duty as HOA president to ensure the neighborhood maintains standards. Officer Morrison tapped on his tablet. According to our records, you filed 17 complaints in the past 12 months. Of those, 16 were found to be non-violations. That's a 94% rate of frivolous complaints. They weren't frivolous, Linda protested. Those homeowners were violating rules. HOA rules, perhaps, but not county codes, Mrs. Carmichael. Filing false or knowingly frivolous code enforcement complaints is actually a violation of Henderson Municipal Code Section 42.03. It's considered a form of harassment. I watched Linda's face pale. Around us, several neighbors who had been pretending to do yard work while watching the drama unfold had stopped even pretending. Everyone was staring at Linda. I wasn't harassing anyone, Linda said. I was doing my job. Your job as HOA president is to enforce HOA rules, not to weaponize code enforcement against homeowners you have disputes with. Officer Morrison's voice was calm but firm. I'm going to document this inspection and note that it was a retaliatory complaint filed after Mr. Kellerman refused to comply with an HOA demand that had no basis in county code. That's not what happened, Linda said, but her voice had lost its conviction. Isn't it? Officer Morrison looked at me. Mr. Kellerman, did Mrs. Carmichael approach you about this shed before filing the code enforcement complaint? Yes. She came to my house Tuesday morning and told me to take it down within 72 hours or face HOA fines. She specifically said she was calling code enforcement because she was sure you would find violations. Officer Morrison made notes. And had you refused to comply with any HOA demands before that? I voted against her proposal to raise HOA dues 2 months ago. She's been hostile toward me since then. That's a lie, Linda interjected. I treat all homeowners equally. Marcus stepped forward from across the street. Officer, if you're documenting patterns, Linda tried to fine me last year for having my trash cans out on the wrong day. She also called code enforcement then. Your office sent someone out who confirmed I wasn't in violation of anything. I remember that complaint, Officer Morrison said. That was you, Mrs. Carmichael. Linda said nothing. Another neighbor, an older woman named Patricia Chen, spoke up. She threatened to fine me for having decorative rocks instead of grass in my front yard, said it was against water conservation codes. When I checked with the county, they told me xeriscaping was actually encouraged. More neighbors started sharing their stories. The Hendersons, despite being on the Architectural Review Committee, admitted Linda had tried to fine them for having a trampoline in their backyard, until they reminded her they were friends. The Martinez family confirmed their experience with the graduation party issue. Officer Morrison listened to all of it, making notes. Linda looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her up. Mrs. Carmichael, Officer Morrison said finally, I'm going to be filing a formal report documenting this pattern of frivolous complaints and apparent retaliatory behavior. The county takes this seriously. Using code enforcement as a weapon in HOA disputes is illegal and undermines the legitimate work we do. You can't do that, Linda said weakly. I absolutely can. In fact, I'm required to document potential code violations, and filing false complaints is a code violation. He tapped his tablet. You'll be receiving a citation in the mail within 10 business days. The fine for first offense is $250. Linda's face was bright red now. This is outrageous. I'm reporting all of you for conspiracy or something. You're welcome to file any complaint you want through proper channels, Officer Morrison said. But I'd advise you to be very careful about filing any more code enforcement complaints unless you're absolutely certain they're legitimate. A second offense carries a $500 fine and potential prosecution. I know my rights, Linda snapped. You. Because knowingly filing false complaints, especially as a pattern of harassment, can be prosecuted as a misdemeanor in Nevada. That carries potential jail time. Officer Morrison closed his tablet. I'd suggest you focus on legitimate HOA business and stop using county resources for personal vendettas. Linda stormed off to her car without another word, peeling out of the neighborhood faster than the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit allowed. Officer Morrison watched her go and shook his head. I apologize you had to deal with that, he said to me. We see this sometimes with overzealous HOA board members. They think they have more authority than they actually do. Thank you for standing up to her, I said. And for the thorough inspection. Just doing my job. Keep the documentation I'm emailing you. If she tries to fine you through the HOA for that shed, you'll have official county verification that it's code compliant. He handed me a business card. If she continues harassing you or files any more complaints you believe are retaliatory, give me a call. We're building a case file on her behavior. After Officer Morrison left, several neighbors came over to shake my hand and thank me. Apparently, everyone had been dealing with Linda's behavior, but nobody had wanted to be the one to really stand up to her. Marcus was grinning. That was beautiful. Did you see her face when he said she was getting fined? I almost felt bad for her, I admitted. Almost. Don't, Patricia said firmly. That woman has made life miserable for people in this neighborhood for years. It's about time someone held her accountable. Nicole called during her lunch break, and I filled her in on everything that happened. She laughed so hard I heard her coworkers in the background asking what was funny. I wish I could have seen it, she said. Linda finally getting what she deserved. Do you think she'll back off now? I don't know. She's pretty stubborn. Well, if she tries anything else, you've got documentation and witnesses. Not to mention a code enforcement officer on your side. The rest of Thursday passed quietly. I worked from home on Friday, keeping an eye out for Linda but not seeing her. Marcus mentioned she hadn't been by to harass anyone else either, which was unusual. Normally, she spent weekends patrolling the neighborhood looking for violations. The following Tuesday, exactly 1 week after Linda's first visit, I got a text from Marcus. Emergency HOA meeting tonight. Linda's calling for a vote. I showed up at the community center at 7, along with what looked like every other homeowner in Meadowbrook Estates. The room was packed. Linda was already at the front table, along with the other board members. Tom Henderson, vice president, and Deanne Murphy, treasurer. Linda banged a gavel to call the meeting to order. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, and her usual crisp appearance was slightly rumpled. I've called this meeting to address false allegations made against me by certain homeowners, she began. It has come to my attention that several of you have been conspiring with code enforcement to undermine my authority as president. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I raised my hand. I didn't recognize you, Stephen, Linda said coldly. According to the HOA bylaws, any homeowner can speak during the open forum portion of the meeting, I said, standing up. I'd like to address Linda's statement. Tom Henderson leaned over to whisper something to Linda. She looked annoyed but nodded. Fine, the floor is yours. I walked to the front, my heart pounding. Public speaking wasn't my favorite thing, but I was angry enough that the words came easily. Linda has spent the past year using her position as HOA president to harass homeowners she has personal disagreements with. Last week, she filed a code enforcement complaint against my property that was determined to be completely frivolous. The officer who conducted the inspection documented her behavior as retaliatory harassment. She's now facing a $250 fine from the county. More murmurs. Linda's face was red again. That's a lie, she said. The code enforcement officer was incompetent and biased. I have the official inspection report right here, I said, holding up my phone. It clearly states that my storage shed is in complete compliance with all county codes. It also documents that you filed 16 other complaints in the past year, 15 of which were found to be non-violations. 16, Patricia called out. Don't forget mine from last year. Right, 16 out of 17 complaints were bogus, I corrected. Linda has been wasting county resources and harassing neighbors. That's not leadership. That's abuse of power. Several people applauded. Linda stood up abruptly, pointing at me. You have no right to speak to me that way. I am the president of this HOA. You're an elected volunteer, Marcus said from the crowd. You serve at our pleasure, and frankly, I'm not pleased. Me neither, someone else called out. I move for a vote of no confidence, Tom Henderson said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. He shrugged. What? I'm tired of the county calling me about Linda's behavior. It makes the whole board look bad. You can't do that, Linda sputtered. Deanne Murphy pulled out a copy of the bylaws. Actually, he can. Article 7, Section 3. Any board member can call for a vote of no confidence against another board member. It requires a majority vote of homeowners present. This is a coup, Linda said. You're all conspiring against me. We're holding you accountable, I said. There's a difference. The vote wasn't even close. Out of 43 homeowners present, 41 voted for the motion of no confidence. Only Linda and her friend Margaret from 2 streets over voted against it. Linda was removed as HOA president effective immediately. Tom Henderson was appointed interim president until proper elections could be held next month. Linda grabbed her things and left without another word, Margaret trailing behind her. After the meeting, people kept coming up to thank me. It was overwhelming. I hadn't meant to start a revolution, I just wanted to keep my storage shed. When I got home, Nicole was waiting up for me. So, how did it go? Linda's out as president. They voted her out. Nicole's eyes widened. Seriously, 41-2, it wasn't even close. She hugged me. I'm proud of you. That took courage. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. The next few weeks were relatively peaceful. Tom Henderson turned out to be a reasonable interim president who actually followed the bylaws and didn't make up arbitrary rules. The Architectural Review Committee revised their guidelines to match county codes, removing a bunch of arbitrary restrictions Linda had added over the years. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 4 weeks after Linda's removal, I came home from work to find my storage shed spray painted with obscenities. Bright red paint spelled out multiple curse words across the tan walls. My security camera, which I'd installed after some package thefts a year ago, had captured everything. The video clearly showed Linda Carmichael approaching my backyard at 2 in the morning, using bolt cutters to break the lock on my side gate, and spending 15 minutes vandalizing my shed. She'd even looked directly at the camera at one point, as if she didn't care about being caught. I called the Henderson Police Department non-emergency line and filed a report. Officer Davis came out within an hour to take my statement and review the footage. That's pretty clear evidence, he said, watching the video. Do you know this woman, Linda Carmichael? She used to be our HOA president until she was removed last month. Let me guess, she's unhappy about that. You could say that. Officer Davis took copies of the video and photographed the damage. The cost to repaint this will probably push it into felony vandalism territory, but I'll let the detective decide that. We'll definitely be pressing charges. I just want it dealt with, I said. This is getting out of hand. I agree. Vandalism is serious, especially when it's clearly retaliatory. Someone will be in touch. Nicole was livid when she got home and saw the shed. Linda did this. Has she lost her mind? Apparently yes. That's destruction of property. That's a crime. The police are handling it. I gave them the video. 2 days later, Detective Sarah Morrison came by. No relation to the code enforcement officer, she assured me, though they'd apparently talked about the case. She reviewed everything. The HOA dispute, the code enforcement complaint, the removal from office, and finally the vandalism. This shows a clear pattern of escalating harassment, Detective Morrison said. Combined with the video evidence, we have a strong case. I'll be obtaining a warrant for Mrs. Carmichael's arrest. Arrest. The word felt heavy. Despite everything Linda had done, the idea of her being arrested seemed extreme. Mr. Kellerman, she committed criminal vandalism on your property. In Nevada, criminal damage to property over $1,000 is a felony. Based on your estimates for cleaning and repainting, we're looking at felony-level damage. Plus, given the documented pattern of harassment, the DA will likely pursue enhanced charges. I just wanted her to leave me alone. I understand, but she's committed crimes. We can't ignore that. Detective Morrison closed her notebook. I'll be in touch after we execute the warrant. Linda was arrested 3 days later at her home. The neighborhood gossip network went into overdrive. Apparently, she'd screamed at the officers that she was being persecuted, that this was all my fault. that she'd done nothing wrong. The officers had body cam footage of her admitting to the vandalism while simultaneously claiming she was justified because I'd ruined her life. The local news picked up the story. Former HOA president arrested for vandalism in apparent retaliation scheme ran on the Channel 8 Evening News. They interviewed several neighbors who talked about Linda's pattern of harassment. My name was kept out of it at my request, but everyone in Meadowbrook Estates knew I was the homeowner targeted in the vendetta. Linda made bail but was ordered to stay away from me and my property. She was also required to attend anger management counseling as a condition of her release. The HOA held emergency elections. Tom Henderson won the presidency legitimately this time. One of his first acts was to pass a resolution condemning Linda's behavior and formally apologizing to all homeowners she'd harassed. He also implemented new oversight procedures to prevent any future president from abusing their authority. The criminal case moved slowly through the system. Linda's lawyer tried to argue she'd been under extreme emotional distress and should receive leniency. The DA wasn't sympathetic, especially after reviewing the extensive documentation of her behavior pattern. In the end, Linda pleaded no contest to misdemeanor vandalism as part of a plea deal. The felony charge was dropped, but she was sentenced to 6 months supervised probation, 100 hours of community service, mandatory anger management counseling, and ordered to pay restitution for the damage to my shed plus court costs. The total came to nearly $3,000. She was also permanently banned from serving on any HOA board in Nevada, which gave me a satisfaction I probably shouldn't admit to. The community service assignment was particularly poetic. The judge ordered her to serve her hours at the Henderson Code Enforcement Office, helping with filing and administrative work. Officer Brad Morrison, who'd inspired Linda's downfall with his thorough documentation, was her supervisor. Marcus told me Brad had said Linda spent most of her first day filing her own complaint reports and reading documentation on why HOA board members couldn't abuse code enforcement. Poetic justice, Brad had apparently called it. My storage shed got a fresh coat of paint, this time a slightly darker tan that Nicole said looked better than the original. We added some decorative elements around it, plants and a small garden area, turning it into an actual attractive feature of our backyard, instead of just a functional storage space. The neighborhood settled into a peaceful routine. Tom Henderson proved to be an excellent HOA president, focused on actual community improvement rather than arbitrary rule enforcement. He organized neighborhood barbecues, set up a community garden, and worked with homeowners instead of against them. Linda moved out of Meadowbrook Estates about 6 months after her sentencing. I heard through the gossip chain that she'd sold her house and moved to an apartment complex in Las Vegas. No HOA there, just a property management company. I imagined she was much happier not having to deal with homeowners and their sheds. Nicole and I got married that fall in our backyard, right next to the infamous storage shed. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, but we invited the whole neighborhood to the reception. Marcus gave a toast about how community meant standing together against tyranny, no matter how petty. Everyone laughed and cheered. Officer Brad Morrison sent a card congratulating us and thanking me for helping expose a pattern of code enforcement abuse. He said Linda's case had led to policy changes at the county level about investigating potential harassment complaints and tracking patterns of frivolous reports. What had started as a simple dispute over a storage shed had actually improved the system. Detective Sarah Morrison also sent a card. noting that the case had been used as a training example for new detectives about the importance of documenting escalation patterns in harassment cases. Tom Henderson implemented a community mediation program through the HOA, where disputes would be handled through neutral third-party mediation before any fines or complaints were filed. It cut down on conflicts dramatically and helped neighbors work out disagreements before they escalated. The Architectural Review Committee became actually useful under new leadership. They helped homeowners plan improvements that would meet codes and look good, rather than just rejecting everything that didn't match someone's arbitrary vision. Looking back, the whole situation seemed almost surreal. I'd bought a simple storage shed from Home Depot, and it had somehow led to the removal of a tyrannical HOA president, criminal charges, policy changes at the county level, and ultimately a stronger, healthier neighborhood community. The shed itself became something of a neighborhood landmark. Kids would point at it and parents would tell the story of how standing up to a bully had changed Meadowbrook Estates for the better. It was probably more attention than any storage shed in history had ever received. 2 years after the initial incident, I was working in my home office when Tom Henderson called. "Hey Steven, got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "The board wants to do something. We're organizing a neighborhood improvement award and we want you to be the first recipient." "For what?" "Fighting with Linda," Tom laughed. "For standing up for homeowner rights and helping create a better community. You didn't have to push back against Linda. You could have just taken down the shed and avoided the conflict. But because you stood your ground, a lot of people who were being quietly bullied found their voice too. I just wanted to keep my shed. Sometimes the smallest stands make the biggest difference. Will you accept it?" "Do I have to give a speech?" "Brief one." I agreed, and the following month at the annual HOA meeting, they presented me with a plaque. It read, "To Stephen Kellerman, for demonstrating that courage means standing up for what's right, even in small things. Thank you for helping build a better community." Nicole cried. I might have teared up a little too. During my brief speech, I thanked everyone who had supported me and reminded them that community meant looking out for each other, not tearing each other down. An HOA should serve homeowners, not rule over them. We're all neighbors here, and neighbors treat each other with respect. The applause was genuine and warm. After the meeting, people kept coming up to share their own stories about how the neighborhood had improved since Linda left. The Martinez family said their kids could actually play outside now without worrying about violating some obscure HOA rule. Patricia Chen had expanded her xeriscaping project and was teaching other neighbors about water conservation. Marcus pulled me aside with a grin. "So that shed was the best $800 you ever spent, huh?" "I guess it was," I admitted. "Think you'll ever need another one? Don't even joke about that. One storage shed revolution is enough for a lifetime." But Marcus had a point. That $800 shed from Home Depot had been worth every penny, not because of what I stored in it, but because of what it represented. Sometimes standing your ground on something small can lead to something much bigger. The shed still sits in my backyard, now weathered by Nevada sun, but still sturdy and functional. Every time I open it to get my lawn mower or tools, I think about that Tuesday morning when Linda knocked on my door, so sure of her authority and so certain I would just comply. I think about Officer Brad Morrison carefully measuring every dimension and calmly explaining to Linda that her complaint was frivolous and retaliatory. I think about standing in front of my neighbors and telling the truth, even though my hands were shaking and my voice was uncertain. I think about Linda's face on that security video, spray painting obscenities at 2 in the morning, so consumed by anger that she couldn't see she was destroying herself. And I think about how a community can change when people decide to work together instead of being ruled by fear. The storage shed is just a shed, 8 by 10 feet of galvanized steel and determination. But it taught me that sometimes the simplest things are worth defending because it's not really about the thing itself. It's about the principle behind it. The right to make reasonable choices about your own property. The right to not be bullied or harassed. The right to expect your HOA to serve the community rather than one person's ego. Linda Carmichael learned some hard lessons about the limits of authority and the consequences of abusing power. I like to think she's happier now, living somewhere without the responsibilities and temptations of an HOA presidency. Maybe the anger management counseling helped. Maybe not. Either way, she's not our problem anymore. Meadowbrook Estates thrives under reasonable leadership. Property values have actually gone up since the changes Tom implemented. People want to live in a neighborhood with a functional, fair HOA rather than a tyrannical one. And my storage shed remains exactly where I put it, 12 feet from the property line, 9 feet tall, 80 square feet of perfectly legal storage space, housing lawn equipment and tools and the memory of the time I stood up to a bully with a clipboard and won. Nicole says I should write a book about the experience. HOA horror stories or something like that. I laugh it off, but maybe someday I will. There are probably thousands of homeowners out there dealing with their own Linda Carmichaels, their own petty tyrants making life miserable over nonsense. If any of them read this story, I hope they take away one simple message. Know your rights, document everything, and don't be afraid to stand your ground when you're right. The law is on your side more often than you think, and sometimes justice comes in the most unexpected forms. Like a code enforcement officer with a tape measure and a dedication to accuracy. Like neighbors finding courage when one person stands up first. Like a storage shed becoming a symbol of resistance against petty tyranny. That shed will probably outlast my time in this house. When Nicole and I eventually move, whoever buys this property will inherit it. They'll never know its history, the drama and conflict and ultimate victory it represents. To them, it will just be a shed, but I'll know. And that's enough. The doorbell rings, pulling me from my thoughts. It's Marcus, holding a 6-pack of beer. Figured you might want to celebrate the 2-year anniversary, he says with a grin. Anniversary of what? The Great Storage Shed Revolt of 2023. That was today, wasn't it? 2 years ago, Linda showed up demanding you tear it down. I laugh and let him in. I can't believe you remembered that. How could I forget? Best neighborhood drama we've ever had. Well, except for when the Johnson's kid crashed his car into the Hendersons' mailbox, but that's a different story. We settle on my back patio with cold beers, looking at the shed in the fading evening light. Nicole joins us after finishing her shift, still in scrubs, grabbing her own beer from the cooler. Are you two having a moment with Steven's shed again? She asks with mock exasperation. It's an important shed, Marcus says seriously. A historic shed, the shed that launched 1,000 complaints, the shed that destroyed an HOA presidency. The shed that just holds lawn equipment, I add. To the shed, Marcus raises his beer. To the shed, Nicole and I echo, clinking bottles. We sit in comfortable silence as the sun sets over Henderson, painting the Nevada sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in the neighborhood, kids are playing. Someone's grilling. Normal suburban sounds of a normal suburban evening in a neighborhood where the HOA actually works the way it's supposed to. And in my backyard sits a storage shed, ordinary in every way except the extraordinary story it carries. A reminder that standing up for what's right matters, even when it's something as small as keeping a shed you legally installed on your own property. Sometimes the smallest battles teach the biggest lessons. Sometimes an 8 by 10-foot storage structure can change an entire community. Sometimes justice prevails, even against clipboard-wielding tyrants who think HOA rules trump actual laws. The shed stands, weatherproof and sturdy, a monument to the principle that homeowners have rights that can't be arbitrarily stripped away by power-hungry board members. It's my storage shed, legally installed, properly maintained, completely code compliant, and absolutely staying right where it is. And that makes it the most valuable $800 I've ever spent.